Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about lesson 3.6, a super important derivative rule called the product rule. Tomorrow we'll get to quotient rule. I'll upload a video of that. But first let's start with product. So product rule states that if you have a function called f of x or whatever, and it's the product of two functions, if it's two functions being multiplied, and you can't put them together, you can't intertwine them in some way, if they're separate, then there's a rule. You can't just take the derivative of each. It's not just u prime times v prime. That's wrong. Turns out there's a whole formula for it. The formula, if you have a u times a v, or you can call it f and g, doesn't matter, then it's u v prime plus v u prime. That's how you find the derivative of the entire function. Another way to say that is the first function times the derivative of the second plus the second function times the derivative of the first. If you could find the u prime and v prime, then you're good. You just got to lay it out. So I'm going to keep going. Feel free at any point, if you feel like I'm going fast, pause the video, take the notes, try to wrap your head around what I'm doing. If at any point even that seems over your head, then shoot me a message. I'll try to help you out as best I can. Okay, let's take a look. Ooh, okay, f of x. They want me to differentiate this, find f prime. We've never differentiated something that looks like this. This is a product of two functions. The u, as I've labeled, is, right here, the u is x squared plus 3. That's just the first function. Nothing special about u and v. You can call them whatever you want. The second function, and it's being multiplied, is the v. It's 2x cubed plus 5x. Okay? And now, every year I teach this, and someone wants to do just derivative of the first times derivative of the second. No, you can't just use the power rule on each part. You have to use the product rule, which I've written right here. The derivative of f, that's f prime, is u times derivative of v plus v times derivative of u. So, well, I already know the u and v, right? I got this and this. That's labeled. I just got to find the u prime and the v prime. And this problem, that's going to be easy. It's right here. I always lay it out. Until you do this many times, I want you to lay out the u prime and v prime. Even when you get good at it, it's good to have a visual and have it there. So let me get rid of this, delete it. Look, u prime is just 2x. Because the u was x squared plus 3, derivative of 2x. The v prime is 6x squared plus 5, because the v is 2x cubed plus 5x. I'm literally just taking the derivative of each piece and writing them down right here. Now take a look. I'm just going to drop them into the function where they belong. The u goes here. The v goes, v goes right here. The u prime will drop right here, and the v prime will drop right there. This formula, you're going to do it so much that you're going to memorize it very quickly. It'll be like spelling your last name. Okay. So now, like I said, I'm just dropping the u and the v prime where they belong right here. Keep with the orange arrows. The u is that. The v prime I found over here drops right there. And now, that one, same deal. The v just goes right there. Don't forget the plus sign in between. Do not forget that. And the u prime, which I found over here, sure, goes right there. Now, technically, you have found the derivative. You are actually done. This is f prime. You have found the derivative. But we should probably practice simplifying something like this. Because if you get a problem like this on a free response, like in one of my summatives, then just leave it. Don't bother simplifying. But if it's on a multiple choice, you know the answer is not going to look like this. Okay? So let's simplify. All I'm going to do is do what you learned in probably Math 1. Expand this using double distributive property. Right? And this one using just regular distributive property because there's only one term over there, 2x. Okay? That looks like this. There's a lot here. I'm going to try to use highlighter to try to keep track of where everything went. Let's use some light colors here. This stuff was in blue. Two binomials being multiplied and ended up with all four of these terms. This stuff, goldenrod, whatever, ended up turning into that. So all I did was simplify there. And now what do you do after distributed property? Well, look for like terms. And I underlined them in orange. You can see there's three terms that go together. They're all the x squared terms. So I put them together, and I ended up with this answer right here. Again, the only like terms here were the x squared, so I put them together. It became 33x squared. Everything else just came to the answer. And I wrote it in order of descending exponents, like usual. Now again, like I said, technically, at this point, this was the derivative. You are actually done with the problem there, but I want you to practice some simplifying too, at least once in a while. Okay, when you're in time crunch, just leave it like that. Okay, let's try another one. Oh, before I try this one, I want to talk about this one more time. Look at this. Remember all that expanding? I could have avoided the product rule here if I had just done distributive property twice, and I would have gotten a four-term function. I could have just used power rule on each term, and I would have ended up with this anyway. It would have taken you right to this. So my advice to you is, if you could avoid product rule, please do. Avoid it. If you got two polynomials, just multiply them out and turn it into one polynomial, use the power rule, and get your final answer. Okay? But now, the reason I brought that up is because look at this one. This one, I literally cannot combine them. This is definitely two functions. The u is 3x to the fifth, and the v is a function called tangent of x. I can't combine those. I can't distributive property those. So let's go through. I want you right now to pause the video. You know what u and v are. I labeled them for you. Find your u prime and your v prime right there. Pause it. It should take you 30 seconds. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully, you got that. If the u is 3x to the fifth, then u prime is 15x to the fourth, right? Power rule. If the v is tangent of x, then the v prime is secant of x squared, or secant squared of x. Good, now, look, I wrote down the formula. As always, the product rule never changes. Drop them where they belong. Get rid of that. The u goes right there. The v prime. It's so easy to make a mistake and accidentally put the v. I've done it too. It happens to all of us. You got to be careful. In the beginning, go slow and take care. Delete. The v goes right there, and the u prime goes right there. Actually, no. Sorry. I like to put the expressions, the variable expressions, in front of the trig functions. So I put the u prime in front and the v after, but not that that really matters. You know, multiplication can be flipped back and forth. Okay? Cool, hopefully that makes sense. And that, there's nothing really to simplify there. I'm just going to leave it. That is my derivative. I called it dy dx. I'm done. Okay? Product rule must be used. You cannot just do this. You can't take this, which let me cut it. Copy, paste. Don't do this. Don't write this. Holy cow, that didn't work. Let's try that again. Don't take this function. Let's call it whatever. They called it y. Great. It's just y. Not y prime. Don't take the function and think y prime is just, oh, this is going to be easy. I just take the derivative of each part. 15x to the fourth times secant squared of x. That's 100% wrong. That will never work. Okay? You have to use the product rule. uv prime plus vu prime. Or first times derivative of the second plus second times derivative of the first. That's the only way to do it when you have two functions being multiplied. Okay, here's a sample. Quick, easy AP question. It looks weird, but it turns out this one's actually really simple. So y is a function defined as two functions being multiplied, u times v. It's the product of functions u of v, product. Well, okay, so define derivative, y prime of 2, just take derivative and plug in x equals 2. You might be wondering, well, hold on. They didn't give me anything to take derivative of. Well, in a way they did. They said y is u times v. So to take the derivative, I just need to use the power rule, which I laid out right here. Y prime is u times v prime plus v times u prime. And then just drop in the information. Plug in 2. Now the information's all given right here. There's 4 pieces of information, and look, there's 4 pieces to this formula. Drop the right ones where they belong, try to find the answer. I'll reveal them in a second. Okay, if you haven't paused, pause now. But if you have paused and tried it, here we go. Oops. Okay. The u of 2, remember I'm plugging in 2 here. The u of 2 is just 3. It told us that right there. Check it out. The v prime of 2, it's just 2. Sorry, it turned out there's a 1. That's a v prime. The v of 2 is, ooh, right there. It's 1. And the u prime is right here. At 2 is -4. And then just do the math. Bang. 6 plus -4 is 2. 2 is the answer. Okay? Looks weird. Turns out it's a really easy product rule problem. Okay? We're going to try a couple product rule problems at the bottom, but first, let's talk about higher order derivatives. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. It just says that if you could differentiate a function, then usually, especially if it's a polynomial, you can continue differentiating it. Meaning there's a first derivative, that's what we've been finding, but there's also a second, third, and a fourth derivative. Second derivative looks like this. We just use 2 apostrophes, kind of. Third derivative, we use 3, but fourth derivative, 4 apostrophes is a bit much. So use a parentheses 4 to denote that you're finding the fourth derivative. And that's what we're doing here. Find the first 4, not just the fourth, but the first 4. Okay, well, look at this thing. This is y. Y prime, that's the easiest power rule ever. That's like under 5 seconds. There you go. 3x squared minus 10x. To find the second derivative, I just use power rule on the first derivative. Just keep going. Okay, well, that's easy too. Whoa. Sorry about that. That should be really simple too. Y double prime, or second derivative, is just 6x minus 10. Now that's also just a polynomial. It's a linear function. I can take the derivative of that. The third derivative is just 6, because power rule says the derivative of 6x is just 6. Minus 10 goes to nothing. And then the fourth derivative. What's the derivative of any constant? A constant is a flat line. The derivative is slope. The derivative is always 0. Don't forget that. Derivative of any constant, whether it be 6 or 6 trillion, the derivative is always 0. There, you just found the first 4. And they're nicely labeled. Okay, cool. Let's jump down to this problem. I want you to try this one from scratch. Notice I already labeled the u and v for you. I even so nicely put the product rule formula there. I'm sure you don't have it memorized just yet, to save you some scrolling. Try that. Pause the video. Write me out. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you declared your u and v, like I did, and then you find your u prime and v prime. There they are. 2x and cosine of x. Now drop them where they belong. U times v prime is x squared times cosine of x. Be careful not to flip anything around, not to use a v instead of a v prime, or a u instead of a u prime, or vice versa. Again here, I kind of wrote it in a weird, not in weird order, just the order that makes more sense to me. I like the variable expression to be in front of the trig function. So I just put the u prime in front, put the v after. But, multiplication can work like that. You can flip them at will. That's it. Nothing to simplify. That's what you get. Hopefully you got the right answer. Second one. Here we go. It's a polynomial. 2 polynomials being multiplied. Like I told you, in real life, you probably will not use product rule here. You will probably distribute everything, and then you can just use power rule once. It's way easier, but we'll get the same answer. And these notes are about practicing product rule, so let's practice it. Formula's there. Everybody pause right now. Find your u prime, v prime, and try the problem from scratch all the way till the end. Okay? At least stop at the unsimplified version. Try it. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you got u prime And v prime declared right there. Now be careful. V prime is 8x cubed. Don't think it's just 8x. Because when you differentiate 2x to the fourth, you get 8x cubed. Good. Again, I wrote down the formula for you to drop everything in where it belongs. Hopefully you got that and that. And like I said before, technically you could leave that. You have taken the derivative. You have done product rule. You have proved it. Great job. But if it were multiple choice or I ask you to simplify, then of course you're doing double distributive property, which I'll kind of show you again. Actually, these are both single distributive property. Nice. That and that times that and that. There you have it. Multiply, you get all this, all that, and put the like terms together, which I've underlined for you. That is your final simplified version of f prime. Okay? Again, this product rule might look weird at first, but you're never going to learn it unless you do it. So if you were not pausing the video and just copying now what I do, that's not as helpful as you trying it, maybe getting it wrong, and fixing the things that you got wrong. Okay? Product rule is of the utmost importance in taking derivatives, and you need to know it. It's right there. However you want to remember it, as the letters or as the words, doesn't matter. Okay? Tomorrow, I'll put up a video about quotient rule, which is significantly tougher. It's another thing to memorize. That's what happens when you have the quotient of two functions. Kind of like this. You cannot take the derivative of the top and derivative of the bottom and just leave it. There's another formula. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Try the homework. Okay, I think it's 8 product rule questions. Give it a try, and I will see you in class, if not Tuesday. Well, Wednesday's a half day. Don't forget, so you don't have any class. I called it a half day. I should just call it e-learning. Wednesday, there's no school, no Zoom sessions. I'll probably post a little practice. That'll be probably the day. Tomorrow I'll post, Wednesday I'll post quotient rule. So you can try to get that done. And Thursday I will see you in class. Okay, thanks.